Welcome to the Upside Podcast, powered by Upside Global and hosted by Julian Blinn, founder and CEO of Upside Global. The Upside Podcast is listened to weekly by over 6,000 sports and tech executives from all sports leagues and teams in the United States and around the world. Julian has been developing technologies for professional sports teams for over 10 years and has worked for major tech companies along with sports tech startups. In each episode, Julian interviews global leaders in sports to share knowledge on emerging technology in the sports industry and how these technologies can help improve the performance of individuals and organizations, both on and off the playing field. And now here's your host, Julian Blinn.
So today we have the honor of interviewing Dr. Warren Bradley, founder of Hytro, a groundbreaking blood flow restriction company. So Warren, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Julian. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you as well. So hey, Warren, so could you start by telling us about your background, yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm a founder of Hytro, but previous to that, I worked in professional sports for just over a decade. So I worked in international rugby with England Rugby. Mm-hmm. I worked in the Premier League with Hull City and various other teams in my career, but I also completed a PhD in exercise physiology. Yeah. And essentially what happened was I was wearing two hats to work every day. I was a practitioner, but I was also an academic researcher. So I was always critiquing what we were doing in a club setting. And I used a lot of blood flow restriction for rehabs. Yeah. And what essentially happened was I really enjoyed the technique, but I was getting annoyed with the complexities of the devices. Mm-hmm. So essentially I patented a new way to deploy BFR, which is now, taken off around the globe. And that was the synthesis of Hytro.
Yeah. That makes sense. So could you start by telling us a bit more about Hytro? Where is the company located? How many employees? And really, what the product does and how it works.
Yeah, of course. I mean, just to kind of cycle back a little bit and explain why the product was created in greater detail. Yeah. Blood flow restriction is really well established. There's thousands of research papers proving how effective it is. But it's traditionally been used in rehab, right? It's been used because it can regenerate muscle tissue, remodel bone, etc. But when you look at the literature and realize it can be used for other things like recovery, hypertrophy, strength, power, endurance of healthy athletes, you then start to question, well, why aren't we using it more robustly across whole programs for whole squads of athletes? Yeah. And then when you look at the tools that are available, it's understandable because they're wired, app-based, digital, tethered, pneumatics. They're cumbersome, they're complex, and you can only use them really with supervision. So we built Hytro to offset those barriers and basically say, let's build in the science and the safety to a wearable, which unlocks widespread BFR because you don't need to supervise it anymore. So no longer is it just in rehab. And now we've unlocked this performance continuum where BFR can be applied in warm-ups, in training, on flights for travel, in swimming pools, in ice baths for recovery, essentially. So now BFR, the aperture has been opened, so you can now apply BFR across your whole program. So that's the why behind Hytro was created. Yeah. We now have patents granted across multiple jurisdictions for the integration of blood flow restriction in wearables. That's USA, UK, Europe, etc. And we now work with several hundred teams around the world. A lot of our business is now in the US, a very innovative place, as you're well aware, Julian. So they're really kind of quick to pick up on things like Hytro. And we're still a small company in terms of staff. So, full-time, 5 or 6 full-time, but we have quite a lot of fractional staff. Yeah. And it's really helpful to us because we have incredible experience on the team. So people with, 15 years Nike experience, Gymshark, head of product is with us. So we have really good staff and components of the company that are fractional staff, which means we can build a very, very strong business. And now we're in the process of scaling that business, which is going very, very well, as you're probably seeing online, particularly in the. So in terms of where we're at now, we service professional sports and college sports. In the future, we will look to, service the more grassroots, semi-professional athletes who are looking for performance improvements. And in the future, our intention is to take this into the medical longevity space too.
Okay, that makes sense. Can you take a step back? Because look, obviously you're aware what BFR does and how it works, but anybody or a team who's never heard of BFR, which is unlikely, but you never know, like how would you explain what BFR, how it works? Like the first time I heard about BFR, I think it was when I was catching up with the USTA. One of my friends was the head strength coach, just told me about it, I think. but how would you describe in a very simple word how, for example, how to use it, where to put it? Because I know you guys can also put it on like the short. You build a special short for that,
Yes.
or I think a T-shirt as well. So can you kind of not to dumb it down, but really to explain how it works?
Yeah. So the cliff notes are that BFR accelerates or magnifies the body's ability to adapt to a physiological stress.
Yeah.
So if you apply BFR and go for a walk, your muscles experience that walk like it's sprinting in terms of the physiology, the internal mechanisms. It makes it harder.
Yeah.
If you do a body weight squat or a body weight push-up, it feels a lot harder than it should because of the BFR increasing the strain on the tissues.
Yeah.
So what you get is greater adaptation. So in a nutshell, BFR is a magnifier of any kind of movement or exercise or recovery. And there's a variety of different ways to leverage BFR depending on what you're trying to do. So if you're recovering, you'll have a set of protocols. If you're trying to enhance muscle hypertrophy or strength or power, there'll be 3 different protocols, and the same for endurance improvements too. And in terms of physiologically what's happening, I'll keep it very brief in the cliff notes. By trapping blood in the muscles, by allowing arterial blood flow in, but restricting the blood flow out, we get net pooling. So the muscles fill up with blood.
Yeah.
That blood becomes deoxygenated because the muscles use oxygen for energy production. So you now have this muscle that's swollen with blood, and that blood is deoxygenated. So the muscle is really stressed, and this is at rest. So then when you choose to do any kind of movement, locomotion, exercise, or even resting for recovery, the body responds more in a more pronounced way because it's stressed.
Yeah.
Stress adaptation. It's a very common calculation, right? So that in a nutshell is how BFR works, and how we deliver it at Hytro is slightly different to the traditional methodologies. So typically it's a cuff that's put on or supervised for putting onto an individual at the top of their limb, the top quarter portion. We built straps into a wearable so that it's always in the right position. So you don't supervise, you just pull on some shorts or a t-shirt. And then to apply the pressure for normal mechanisms, you would have a pump up sphygmometer, handheld device, or an app-based pneumatic device that pumps it up for you.
Yeah.
We've removed that complexity and basically built in a strapping mechanism with Velcro fixing locations and tested and validated the science of those pressures in lab facilities. So we know the pressure that's been applied by the product within a specific range of percent limb occlusion pressures, which means you no longer need the digital readout because we know the pressure that's been applied because we know the setting you're using. So simplify it, make it more accessible, and therefore you increase buy-in and you increase the ability to apply it across a whole program instead of just for rehabs, essentially.
And I mean, I know you talk about the use cases, but how would you again summarize the main use case? You talk about rehab, you talk about training. I mean, how would you summarize it again?
So at Hytro, we focus very much on the performance continuum. So rehab is a big green tick for BFR. We know it works. There's loads of research there. But let's look at all the athletes that are healthy and uninjured. We can impact their performance. So as a company, we focus on that 95% of athletic population. So most of our teams use it for recovery primarily. And it might be post-competition, in the changing rooms, strapping the shorts while having a recovery shake or having some food or having a meeting, whatever is continuation of daily activity while strapped in. A lot of teams will also use it on a game day +1. So when they come back into facility, they may do kind of a menu of options like a bike push, mobility, flow, stretching, ice bath, for example. Well, with these shorts, when they're unapplied, there's no pressure. You can simply reach between your legs and strap in the strap whenever you want to apply pressure. So you can wear them throughout the whole recovery flow and decide when to strap in to magnify the output of your recovery session. So another common way is pop on the shorts, jump on a bike, strap in for 5 minutes, unstrap for 2, maybe go for a stretch, strap in for 5, unstrap for 2. And more increasingly, we're seeing athletes using it in ice baths. Now, that is particularly interesting from a physiological standpoint, which perhaps we won't go into the detail of today. But what we're definitively seeing is an improvement in recovery metrics by combining the two modalities. And we are doing the research on this in academic institutions and in professional teams to validate that.
Now, can you double click on what you just said about the ice bath when you're combining the ice bath with the BFR solution or compression, right? So what does it do to the body, right? what's happening right there?
Yeah, cool. Let's definitely double click. So with cold water immersion, we're creating cold shock proteins, we're reducing soreness and inflammation, right? But crucially, we're down regulating muscle protein synthesis, which can blunt some training adaptations. So we reserve ice baths for in season, for competition, where we're really promoting recovery and physiological adaptation is not the primary focus. In a pre-season, we typically don't use ice baths because we want to drive adaptation. So we don't use it typically. With BFR, we're massively upregulating muscle protein synthesis. So it stands to reason that by combining the two methodologies, we offset the downregulation by using BFR in the ice bath and either get it back to equilibrium or supercompensate and actually increase muscle protein synthesis on net balance. Not only that, we still get the cold shock proteins. Not only that, we still get the swelling, the flushing, and the reperfusion from the BFR. So not only is it a magnifier, it's a bigger bang for buck. You're getting both elements of both recovery products and an offsetting of a blunting of adaptation. I will say that we've done one research study with professional soccer team here in the UK, which has seen significant improvements using BFR in the ice bath versus ice alone. And we're now following that up with a lab-based study that's going to look at inflammatory markers and performance testing for neuromuscular function. So we are going to objectively show recovery metrics have improved by combining the modalities. But anecdotally and subjectively, we've definitively seen that hundreds of times.
That's great. Now, how would you summarize the benefits of using BFR, your solution? Like, I think you mentioned, like, improving recovering time, for example, right? For training, I'm guessing, does that mean that you can get a quicker workout, more intense workout, maybe for a short amount of time? Did I get that correctly? Or?
It really depends. Yes, but it really depends on what you want to use it for. So we're leveraging blood flow. We're increasing the challenge on the tissue, on the muscle tissues.
Yeah.
Therefore, it can be applied in a lot of different ways. If you want to improve muscle hypertrophy, yeah, you could do that in a quicker amount of time, or you could do it with lower loads, or you can get bigger output for the same amount of time. So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. And I'll give you an example on this. Say we have academy athletes and one of their primary focuses is hypertrophy. We need some mass on a 17-year-old, 18-year-old that's pushing for first team.
Yeah.
Well, they're already probably very heavily loaded throughout the program. Their periodized program is probably already at max capacity. So we can't really load them with heavy weights anymore with the issue being overtraining, right? Or damaging fibers too much. But we can do BFR as an additional session because there is very little muscle fiber damage. The adaptations we see is from cell swelling, not from cell tearing typically. So because of this, we can actually add in a low load BFR session, only 15, 20 minutes on top of their current sessions.
Yeah.
We're not going to see any central nervous system fatigue, and we're only going to see additional adaptation. So there is your opportunity with an academy athlete. Perhaps in season, we're looking at monitoring load because we need to look after competition. We need to recover optimally for competition. But you might have an athlete that's lacking in their, say endurance capacity. Okay, well, we can throw them on a bike, do a low wattage spin for 15, 20 minutes of BFR applied, drive some adaptations in the tissues like capillarization, like mitochondrial biogenesis, without causing fatigue and central nervous system fatigue. Therefore, we're getting a fitter athlete come game day without additional loading or with very little additional loading.
Yeah.
So you are absolutely correct, but it's very important to understand why we're applying BFR and tailoring the protocol to suit that need in that particular environment.
That makes sense. Now, how would you describe the state of the BFR market, right? Maybe the state of the competition and really the main trend that you guys are seeing today. What would you say?
Yeah, so the BFR market's been around for a long time, and we are starting to see advancements in how it's applied. But to be perfectly frank, everyone has done the same thing, just a little bit better.
Yeah.
Until we came along. That was the point in the innovation behind Hytro. We made it different so that we redefined how it was deployed. So all BFR is still, it should be supervised because it's an independent cuff or strap or whatever it is, that if someone puts that on incorrectly is dangerous.
Yeah.
Simple. However, if you build that into a wearable, it's always in the right location. You can't mess it up. The biggest knucklehead cannot put on the shorts incorrectly unless they put two legs in one in one hole or something.
Sure.
So really, BFR has been, it's been the same for the past 20, 30 years. There's just slight tweaks and advancements. And they're all very effective. They all have a place in the continuum, but they very much sit in the same place on the continuum, which is rehab and a little bit of return to play. Whereas what we have developed is everything else. It's performance. It's frame, recover, travel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So now what would you say to that point, right? What do the teams like the most about the product? That, like you said, it's a wearable device. You can't mess it up. You know, it's put in the right location. What would you say as far as what they like the most?
I think there's a couple of things. One is just easy, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have a group of 55 athletes in an NFL team, there is no hope in hell you're going to set them all up with a BFR cuff and do a training session. It's next to impossible. Well, it is pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
This is something that we know is safe, we know is effective, and you can just get on with it. It's just in their program. So as an example, we've got some really cool video and imagery of the Atlanta Falcons NFL team. They've got like 3x2 meter screens all around the gym. They throw up the Hytro protocol. The lads all turn up in the gym with the shorts on because the kit man put it on their peg or on their place.
Yeah.
They all get cracking because they just read off the screen what their session is, with coaches obviously monitoring the session.
Yeah.
It's super easy, and the coaches know they're getting a dose of something that's super effective for them. I think the other things that we have done pretty well due to the great team we have essentially is the onboarding and support we provide for teams.
Yeah.
So we don't just say, here's a product, here's a BFR product. What we say is, let's actually sit down and look at your program and understand how we can make this fit your workflow. Because typically BFR doesn't fit workflows very well. It takes 15, 20 minutes to set up and monitor. You have to get it out of the cupboard and, plug it in or whatever, or set up the app. With this, it's okay, you have a 15-minute window of opportunity for warm-ups. Cool. If you have the shorts on during the team meeting, you can go straight into your mobility flows and strap in. Like, we'll work out with you where is best to implement this device. And I think that is actually probably the most important thing around what we do. It's the consultation and supportive nature of how we operate as a business.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I think, and I've been in the sports tech industry for many years, and I feel that's where many of the sports tech vendors sometimes fail, because customer support is not there, the product doesn't fit into the workflow. So I'm glad that you guys really focus on that, because that's a critical success factor, right?
I mean, I was a practitioner, right? I was a sports scientist by trade, and I'd often, like you will be aware, I had products come across my desk all the time.
Yeah.
If it wasn't immediately clear on how, when, and where to use the product and like what support we would get, I wouldn't even look at it. Could have been the best spread. But what we really focus heavily on is education, CPD, supporting, making BFR fit your workflow. And you know what? It doesn't have to be Hytro. We're about promoting BFR.
Yeah.
But what we inevitably see is, oh, we really like BFR. We want to use it with all of our athletes because we now understand the implementation. But we can't do it with our current devices. And lo and behold, you can with the Hytro. So we don't force product. We give education. And when people are up to speed of how BFR can be applied more robustly across the program, we're the only products that can be used in that manner. So yeah, it kind of works nicely.
Yeah, that's great. Now, what would you, because you talked about the fact that you guys you have a wearable device, it fits into the workflow. But what would you say are your competitive advantages? What would you say if you could summarize that?
Yeah, I guess just speed and ease of use again. Like it's a pair of shorts that all you need to do is strap them in. They're simple. So one of the big barriers for using BFR is time. Like a coach are straps for time, and athletes can often be put off if something takes a while to set up. And I remember doing this when I used BFR in England rugby with the sevens team. I remember one day I had 4 athletes, all with BFR on their rehab program. We had a 45-minute allocation for the gym session. Yeah. And we had 1 set of occlusion cuffs. And I was like, well, we're done here. We can't do occlusion with all 4 of you. 1 cuff, 1 set of cuffs. And just that even time to set them up, I could have probably got through 2 of the athletes. Whereas if you have something that's rapidly deployable within a second, it can be undone within a second. you can forget about it if you want and unstrap and leave it in the off position and crack on with something else in your session. It's just accessibility. And I think that really is the biggest USP for us. And it's why it's used in so many different ways. You don't have to use it for recovery if you would prefer to use it for warming up. If you would prefer to use it at home to continue your rehab, if you prefer to use it, I don't know, on an aeroplane, right? It's entirely dealer's choice depending on what you need. Whereas traditionally, it was very much one-on-one, rehab-based, maybe some training in the gym with a practitioner supervising.
Well, it sounds like also some of the other solution, you have to have someone with you to set it up for you, make sure it's the right position. But in your case, it's a standalone device, right?
Absolutely. And look, caveat to that, there are very clever athletes who can do BFR themselves, of course.
Yeah.
If they know how to do it, I'm sure a lot of them can do it. But there's still litigation issues. What if they put it on incorrectly?
Yeah.
What if over inflated with the handheld cuff? What if the digital Bluetooth dropped out and it got stuck inflated? And it happens. Yeah. There's all of these things where you need to supervise that athlete doing BFR. Because we've built BFR with a limitation on pressure, it will not go beyond 80% limb occlusion on any individual. Unless you have a contraindication, which we should already know about and you should have been screened anyway.
Yeah.
Like Hytro is the safest way to do BFR because we built it with safety parameters.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, you talked about some of the team using it, right? I think you mentioned NFL and soccer, for example. I've heard and you don't have to tell me which team exactly or specifically are using your product today, but can you give me a sense of the types of teams or in which leagues your product is being used today?
Absolutely, love to. All of the major leagues, most of the Premier League use the product.
Yeah.
A lot of the Championship, NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, MLS, all of them have a proportion of teams that use the product. I mean, last season alone in the NFL, it was our first season that we sold to the NFL any teams. We had Washington Commanders, Buffalo Bills, and Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah. All
three of those teams were in the lowest injury incidents at the end of the season. And all three of them have given us testimonial to state we were one of many, but one of the reasons why their athletes were more available to play.
Yeah.
Not only that, all three teams, and I can't name who, but all three teams, people have invested in Hytro, as in the coaches have invested, because they believe so much in the product.
Yeah.
So, we have incredible coverage across the world, and coaches really believe in what we're doing.
That's great. Now, could you tell me a bit more about the business model, right? So any team who's listening to this, they want to buy the product. How does it work?
Yeah, so what we encourage is to book a discovery call initially. As I mentioned, we're all about education and support. Yeah. So we'd like to understand your challenges, your pinch points. We can perhaps educate and help you understand where BFR can help you.
Yeah.
Through a discovery call. So head to the website and just literally book a call. You'll also find on LinkedIn, I'll always put up posts with links to booking a call as well. It's nice and easy. Yep. And then the next step, it really depends. Some people will go for, say, an NFL team. They might buy 30 units to pilot. Once they're used to that with a cohort of athletes, they'll buy 150 units to cover the whole team for 2 shorts each.
Yeah.
Really, it's case by case. We need to understand your challenges, where we can support you, and what your product needs are. So, yeah, book a discovery call is really the kind of crux of that.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, can you give me a sense of the price range of your products? Can you tell me a bit more about that as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's the RRP, right? So the recommended retail price, but there is, of course, discounts on bulk orders. So if we sell you 150 units, it's not going to be RRP.
Of course.
That is down to the sales staff to discuss with individuals. However, I can tell you that RRP is $349 on the shorts.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I've gone blank on the t-shirts, but it's about $60 less, roughly.
Okay. That makes sense. Now, what are your plans for the next 12 months? What are you guys looking to accomplish? Maybe it's to raise more money, to break into new sports, new leagues, or maybe launch new products. I mean, what are your plans right now?
Yeah, sure. So with regards to investment, I will defer to my co-founder and CEO, Raj. He deals with it, but I can say that we've been incredibly fortunate to be backed by hundreds of professional coaches and athletes who have invested in us.
Yeah.
Including some pretty big names, NFL stars, Formula One drivers, etc. So funding is currently ongoing. but we're doing incredibly well. If any coaches are interested, we are open to take investments, so do get in touch.
Yeah.
In terms of kind of how we're scaling the business, we now have incredible business fundamentals in place.
Yeah.
We have an incredible team. The product is great. We've got a lot of research and development ongoing. Now it's really about scaling through major leagues, particularly in the US and Europe, and collegiate system. So we've just hired some sales staff in the US who are doing an incredible job already.
Yeah.
And so scaling in the kind of pro sports and college space. And then at the same time, we are going to start testing the consumer market. So taking the stories and learnings from professional sports, tell that story online and engage with people and help them support their performance needs as well. So for example, we work with a lot of Tour de France teams, cycling teams now. And what we're doing is capturing content and research with them to go to the market of cyclists and say, here's how your favorite riders are using Hytro blood flow restriction, and here's how you can improve your functional threshold power or your peak power output on your bike. Here's the product and here's the education. So it's a process, and it's pro sports and college first, and then moving into the D2C consumer market.
Well, that makes sense. Well, look, we're at the end of the podcast, but I wanted to thank you for your time today, and good luck with everything. So thank you.
Julian, thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. To access past episodes and other research, articles, and analysis of sports technology, please visit our website, theupside.us. Subscribe to the Upside newsletter and receive full access to our sports tech business letter and website. Royalty-free music is provided by ibaudio.com. The Upside podcast provides timely insights and interviews with global leaders in sports technology. Until next time, keep looking to the upside.